Hello and welcome to the North South podcast. This is episode 3 of season 2. We are lucky enough to have a guest with us today. We've got Jack Hampshaw, who runs Counter Grappling in Sheffield. And yeah, welcome. I'm Dave, as I'm sure you already know, and I'm here with my lovely assistant.
Andrew.
He's not even going to introduce himself, Andrew. So we've got Jack on to talk about the coaching side of jiu-jitsu rather than strength and conditioning like we did in the last episode, because Jack runs his own gym. Jack and I have trained together for years now, separate gyms, and a bit of a storied past. No, that's shite. We don't have a storied past at all, but we've trained together a long time. I know Jack. I've started coaching more recently, and then Andrew and Jack have got a lot more experience and have kind of met and talked a lot more on the competition scene than I ever will. So Jack, welcome. If you wouldn't mind, just give us a brief introduction to where you've trained, what your jiu-jitsu journey has been.
I think I started in 2012 with like a proper class then. I think I was always watching UFC and then trying to train with friends because I was like living in Rosendale, where there's loads of jiu-jitsu now, but at the time, like I couldn't find any of it. So we were always watching videos, like Gracie Combatives and Eddie Bravo documentaries, all that back in the day. And then when I moved to Sheffield, I could find a gym there. So I started at the Forge, and then that became Five Rings with Paul Cole. And then I think everything started sort of shifting and changing with gyms closing around 2020. And then after that, we were sort of struggling for anywhere to train. So me and Paulo just decided to start out on our own. And then we opened up Counter Grappling then, just for a way to train the way that we want. I think we got a bit stuck with all the warm-ups, all the bullshit. So like that sort of fed into CLA quite well. So once we were finding our own way to open up, it sort of like naturally evolved towards that. So yeah, so 2022, I think we started Counter Grappling. Yeah. It's just sort of built slowly from a morning class a week to like 6 days a week now. Like building up.
Yeah, that's really cool, because what I like is that you've managed to build a bit of a competition team, or people who compete regularly come and train with you. Like in Sheffield, it's a funny situation where a lot of gyms have split up thanks to one individual, but they'll remain nameless. And it just means that we don't have a big like stealth or anything like that like other major cities do. So as a result, it means that those guys who want to compete often find that they're quite limited in terms of finding lots of other training partners who want to compete regularly, and maybe finding a training team that will go and travel to stuff with them, especially because not as many people are competing in gi as they used to, which was kind of the bread and butter around here. So I think it's really nice that seeing that you've kind of created that environment where you've got the guys who regularly train with you, and then I know some of my guys come and drop in. I know you've got guys who train at a couple of different places but will come regularly with you as well. And it's just impressive to see you guys doing the stuff that I know when I started and before I had a family and stuff, that was what I wanted from jiu-jitsu, having come straight from rugby. And it was basically like, yeah, no one really does that around here. And it's really nice to now know that there are places. And like when I've got guys who want to compete, I've got a list of people that I can say, go and talk to X, or I'll ask Jack, or like luckily I can ask Andrew as well, but I can send them to people and they can have those conversations that maybe 5 or 6 years ago they couldn't really.
Yeah, totally. Like I think the amount of competitions that I've done and gone to a decent level, I think that helps a lot, just having that experience and knowing what the competitions are like. And then we also have quite a different style to a lot of the gyms. Either they're MMA focused, or they're gi centric, or, you know, self-defense. So whereas we're quite wrestly and leg locky, I think that sort of helps a lot for competition as well, compared to just having like experience competing. We also train leg locks every day. We start from the feet every class. So kind of gets another bunch in there that are actually interested in the sport as well.
Yeah, you're not asking a room full of crickets if they've watched like whatever the matches on the weekend, whereas I managed to do the other week, forgetting that the guys I coach are largely MMA. So have you found, what, to bring it back to like the way that you've kind of set this place up, what do you find is the where do you start from with someone who comes through your doors who's new to it, and then after that maybe compare that to when someone comes through your doors who's trained somewhere else and has a very different set of expectations from what class would look like?
This is a good question, Dave. I like this question.
Yeah, that's pretty good actually. So for beginners, we're like trying to expose them to the whole game. In that first class, I'm trying to get a little piece of everything. So we do a little bit from the feet, we do a little bit from guards, we do a little bit of pinning, a few submissions so we understand that. And then in that first class, I'm trying to give someone like an experience of, here's the little pieces. By the end of the class, you should be able to roll comfortably, at least with me, or if not one of the higher belts, and feel like you're going for the things that we've looked at. We've got an actual game to play. You understand where you're losing, where you're winning. And that's the main thing for that beginner. Understand, like, we're actually going to try and compete. We're going to try and fight for the things that we're looking like at. And then, for the guys that are already trained, it's just the specifics that we can do. We still probably look at the whole game, but we're just going to go into a bit more detail. I don't have to look after them as much. We're going to go, maybe I can focus in that day on just a specific thing. So one submission and maybe one position. It doesn't have to be a bigger picture of what we're getting out of the sport, I guess.
Cool.
Yeah, I like that. I like that.
Do you find that there is a difference in how open people are to that when they first come through the doors? So like, I just as a frame of reference, I've had, because I've taken over this class, I've got people in there who were really open to the idea of CLA and kind of the approach that we're taking by just using games. And then I've got a few people who were much more hesitant to begin with. It was clear they were very, very uncomfortable with the idea of there not being necessarily a clear answer, but just a set of aims that we were seeking, essentially. How have you found? Has it differed between the different type of students that come in, or have you found that people have just been quite open to the approach?
I'm not really sure what's changed. Like in the last 6 months, maybe I've just gotten better at teaching it. Maybe the explanations are a bit better, or maybe I've put in a bit more context before the games. But when I was first like shifting over, it was really difficult because you'd be like, someone had asked you for an answer and you'd be like, well, just go and play around here. Like, yeah, do the game and you'll figure it out. But they were they didn't want to play the game. They'd sort of resist, or they'd have too many questions before they'd gone and give it a try. I think probably the context, or we're going to do this guard pass from here, like we're aiming to get past the legs, we're looking at holding people down, all those sorts of things. Or, a little bit more context for the bigger aim of the sport. I think that's probably the main thing that's made it easier to teach those guys to get rid of that resistance. Because early on, it used to be, like half of the new guys that had come in would play the game for about 30 seconds and then they'd be like, oh, it's not working. Why is it not working? You can see they get frustrated. And I think probably because I was a little less confident in the coaching or my ability to explain it, I think they felt a little bit left behind, because you just say, oh, just play the game. Just give it a go. Just try it out, because you can see the rest of the class, it works for them, but they've obviously experienced a bunch of other things for it to make sense to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is that,
it is interesting, this stuff. Like, this is something that, like, me and Josh talk about all the time, and obviously something that we're experiencing a lot more now, having the space of our own, is how, like, one of the reasons why I said it's a good question is because the different the differences in people in terms of whether you've trained before or not trained before, their expectation of what to get out of a session is wildly different. Like obviously, we've got a good core group of beginners now that have known no different. So to them, they've never drilled, and I don't like saying this, but they've never drilled anything. They haven't got a clue. Do you know what I mean? Like, and so like if you put them in a class where, like say for example, they went and visited a class, they were away or something, and these were drilling, for them it'd be like, what the fuck's going on here?
They'd have the moment the other way around.
Yeah, they'd be like, what the fuck's this all about? But then you obviously on the other hand, you have the guys that we've either inherited or visitors or something that come in and they're like, well, I had a guy that come to a class on Tuesday, and like we obviously Jack's mentioned that within his classes he'll like play the whole game. For anyone who's listening, that means you might do like you said, like pinning, some back stuff, some wrestling, some leg locks, whatever within a session. We look at it more over a week. So obviously if people are coming throughout the week, they'll play the full game over a week as opposed to in a session. Again, that's just a decision that we made at the moment, especially when one of the difficulties you'll have with like a CLA approach, like you said, is if you just chuck a shitload of stuff at people, it can just be like, what the fuck's going on here? And if they never get any success, then they just don't go in. So like we'll take a bit more of a singular approach. Obviously it's still live and it's still the outcomes change and the degrees of freedom within that build up over a session. But it's fascinating how, again, sorry to come back, the guy was like, so bearing in mind we were doing a 90-minute session, and this was a 90-minute session built around like leg locks, 50-50, more 50-50 entanglements as a whole. And he was like, are we going to do any live rolling after this? And I was like, well, we've just done 90 minutes of live training. Like, what do you mean? And it's so funny, like the way that people come in, they just what their expectations of a class is just like they've just been taught that they come in and do 45 minutes of drilling, and then you get to spar and do whatever you want. Yeah. And it is a really fascinating thing. Whereas, like I said, like our beginners that have been with us for a while now, they don't know. They just come and it's like, right, we're doing this, and they go, all right, and they're just into it. Do you know what I mean? Like they're not asked. So that's why I thought it was a really good question, because the differences in people that you get versus brand new people who've never been exposed before and people who've been training for before is wildly different.
Yeah, and I think that's interesting that you said in the last 6 months, like I've noticed a shift that people are much more, or I think we've probably noticed a shift in making the podcast, that people are more interested and kind of open to these discussions than they probably were when we first started. There was that big backlash, partly because of the language that Greg Souders uses, and you compare like the way he talks on stuff now, it's very, very much more like he's one of the guys, rather than it being like, who's this guy, who does he think he is? I think the whole view of that approach is now accepted as an approach.
Yeah.
But I also completely agree with you from the teaching perspective that sometimes it just, you gain more experience, or you become more confident in the way that you talk about things, or you've solved that problem enough times and dealt with that issue from someone enough times that you feel more comfortable solving it, and it kind of comes a bit more naturally.
But this is really important to make, actually, because this is coaching. This is what coaching's about. To be honest, like me in particular, I try and steer clear of like the eco brigade, because it's so easy to just be like, oh yeah, we do this. Like I'm better than you because I do this.
Yeah.
Greg says this, so I do this.
The number of guys who were uninterested because you or I said, oh, I might show a technique if someone's really struggling.
And this is the difficulty with this using constraints, is like people, because they don't, again, without me losing my fucking head over this, people don't understand the context of what you're doing and why you're doing it. So they buy Greg's fucking guard passing instructional, and in the video he goes, remember guys, this is not plug and play. And it's like, well, what the fuck do you think everyone's doing? They're just going and they're going, right, step one, we're going to do this. And it's just like they miss the point. And the battle of that is coaching. How do you communicate? How do you adjust? How do you change? What's that person doing? What's that person doing? What's the outcome you're working towards? Can you make it harder, easier?
Yeah.
Do you need to adapt it? Do you need to change it? Like, that is coaching. And I think people have, without, sorry Dave, I'm going to fucking keep going here because you set me off. I seen a video the other day, and it was like someone who is quite a well-respected coach. I'm not saying who it is because he is a nice bloke. And he was sort of saying like, oh, it's easy. It's too easy to do. You're not doing it. And I was like, mate, you don't see me sat for 2 hours planning fucking classes on my laptop. You don't see the hours of conversation that me and Josh have about feedback in sessions, speaking to people, working with people one-to-one. Like, it's the idea what's built around this session is about this like more live approach, whatever terminology you want to use, eco, constraint led, whatever, is so misunderstood. It is getting better, but again, the problem is it's getting better through the lens of Greg. And Greg is doing a fantastic job of speaking that message, and obviously his brain relative to this stuff is fantastic, and the way that he's conceptualized everything. But there's only one lens that it's getting viewed from. And there are many, many other lenses that you need to understand and to be able to view it. Sorry, rant over.
It's all right. Come in, I'll do it again. Drop the clanger. Having come from teaching, but that is the nuts and bolts. I think people are expecting it to be, the fun stuff is the drill design, and you get to watch it and you see what happens and you kind of react in the moment. What they don't see is, and it's the same in the classroom, like you've all seen the teacher ad where they're like, oh, sir, you showed us what the solar system looks like. What they don't show you is the number of lessons, period 6, where that poor physics teacher eats shit for 60 minutes. And it's just part of the process. And I think that people don't appreciate that the fun stuff is great, and the drills, and we all love watching those. Like I enjoy watching Kit Dale's ones because I'm just like, fuck, that's really clever the way that he solved that problem. But then I want to figure out, how would I approach it? Would I do it the same way? And maybe I will like play with it and just chuck it in and go, did that work? And more often than not, I'll come back, I'm like, no, that didn't really work. I need to figure out how I want to teach that. But they don't appreciate the difficult stuff. No, it's okay. The difficult stuff behind it is actually the conversations about exactly what you're talking about. Like, how do we give feedback? Is this question good enough? Are people improving on the basis of the space we're giving them to do the things that they're doing? And no one's talking about that because that's boring. And actually, that's where the good stuff comes from. Like you said, someone when I was teacher training told me a really good teacher will look like a duck paddling through water. Like on the surface, they just look like they've got it. They're spinning plates. They look like a circus performer, and it just looks so effortless. What they haven't seen is the 8 hours of paddling that it took under the water to get to that point, just in that lesson. So,
one of the things that's really important. I think Jack is a good question, because actually, Jack, I'll give Jack credit where it's due. So again, when I originally started playing this stuff and trying this stuff, I always call it like the pre-Souders era, because Greg hadn't really sort of made a name for himself yet. PS 2000 and some at PS, and actually, like, give Jack a bit of credit. Jack was one of the first guys I noticed in the UK sort of approaching training in this way. And again, I'd be interested to hear off you, Jack. So one of the strategies that I took was, A, because I'm a bit of a stubborn bastard, but B, because I quickly realised that everything was being influenced very much from one side of the debate, was I actually stopped engaging with anything relative to jiu-jitsu, relative to this topic, because for about 2 years, didn't watch podcasts, didn't watch anything on YouTube or anything, because I was like, I need to get to grips with this. So I need to go into sessions, I need to plan these sessions, I need to be able to improvise, I need to actually understand what the fuck I'm doing in order to help people. Especially someone like, fuck me, we're on a podcast talking about it. Do you know what I mean? How can I sit on a podcast and talk about something which I haven't done the time to learn about and to be able to do? Now, obviously, like I said, it was about 2 years where I basically ignored the majority of jiu-jitsu content around constraints. And now, obviously, I'm much more established, so I can now go and listen to different podcasts and stuff. Again, I still try and avoid jiu-jitsu stuff where I can, but listen to other podcasts about the theory. I'd be interested to hear, Jack, sort of how was your approach to learning about it, but also how did you build that experience through the way that you plan your sessions or apply that into your students or yourself?
Like the complete opposite. Just watched every piece of jiu-jitsu, eco media, every Greg Souders video, all the podcasts. Pretty much that. Like, I would always try and I would watch a little bit, listen to a podcast, take away for a few weeks, try and do the same thing, but for all the skills that I wanted to train or that I thought they needed in the gym, and then go and find out a new thing, listen to some more, find some more videos, and just carry on doing that. I'd try to visit all the different gyms that I could find that were teaching this way, see how they did it, see where they were maybe doing better than me. And then I'm like a swimming teacher as well outside of this, so just for practice at using different constraints, would just do that every day. So try and take the same ideas but apply it to swimming.
So what you're saying is you just used to chuck kids in the pool and let them figure it out for themselves.
Just figure it out. It's fine.
He's drowning. He's working through different solutions.
It's emergent. It's emergent.
He's getting feedback. It's fine.
No, that's interesting.
Good.
It's interesting. Yeah. I think that's a really good thing. I think that's a very smart thing to approach. Is like you said, like take a piece of information and go away for a couple of weeks. Forget about everything else. Just go and do it for a couple of weeks. See how it feels. And I think it's interesting. You know, like nowadays, one of the things that happens. I don't know if this happened. It might not happen to you as much because, like you said, you had quite a lot of external sort of influence. But I'll get sent like videos of like guys that are in our class, and it'll be like it's normally a fucking Greg video, to be honest, because he's the big name in it. But it'll be interesting how through planning we've both come to the same way of organising a session without again and obviously I can only say through well, Greg's not watching my videos anyway, so it's interesting how. Joshua says it's like you're reading from the same hymn sheet. It's like when you break this stuff down, you always tend to, and obviously there's some differences. Like you said, you'll see somebody and you'll go, "Fuck me, that's brilliant!" Like that. Yeah. That's like I remember the first time I watched like some of Cal Jones's judo stuff, and it was like, "Fuck me, that's amazing!" Like he's cracked it. Do you know what I mean? But a lot of the time, you'll always find that you tend to end up in the same spot because when you start thinking about the game in the way that we all now think about the game through this lens of like constraints and all the stuff that comes with the eco, whatever it is, CLA, is that you always end up in the same spot. And the thing that I find interesting is, well, what then changes? How does somebody separate themselves as a good coach from somebody who's just like following a script? Is again to come back to that idea is like delivery, communication, language, all that different stuff, which is where it gets really, really interesting. Boring for everyone else, but interesting for me.
But what I think you two both, although you described quite different ways of coming to the same thing, they were also quite similar in that both of you applied it, like you did the thing. And that's the really important part, is people are like, oh, should I use this drill? Should I use that drill? Should I? Like, it doesn't matter. You just need to apply something over and over again and decide, does that work for me or not?
Yeah.
And the fact that you also, like, Jack, you mentioned going and visiting places. I think that's really underrated. And again, coming from teaching, literally you'd be told, oh, you're struggling with this, go and sit in so-and-so's classroom. They're really good at that. Yeah. Because being in it and watching it happen and watching that person's, especially with soft skills, which is essentially what yes, we can do all the planning and the design and all of that, but it's mediated through soft skills and the ability to communicate and adapt and react on your feet. You would pick up things from people in person that you'll never see because they just don't get recorded, or it doesn't come across in the way it's recorded, or the recording has to be scripted or whatever. And actually for some people, the back end of the planning and the thought and the stuff, then it's not as much their forte. Like, they're good at it, but then when you put them in front of an athlete or a room full of people, you're like, oh, that's why that room produces what it does, or that's the thing you actually need to see, is the in-person kind of face-to-face. I imagine it's similar to the difference between the way that Danaher comports himself on his DVDs and the way he actually is if you were to be in the situation to have a conversation with him.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah, I think that's like massive for how it looks in a class. When you can just set up a game or describe it on a video, that's like one little piece of it. But as you go through the class, you've got to go to each pair and just be like, oh, did you get what we're saying? Yeah. Oh, this is the grip. Oh, just try it like this. No, that's not actually the starting position. It's all those sort of things. Or do you understand how we're winning? I think being able to explain that to a full room of people separately in their own way is a lot more of what's actually going into setting up these games or getting people to play them properly than just describing just the first demo at the start of it and then hoping everyone gets it.
It's no different, again, in the classroom, because people will, at first, you give the instructions once, you're like, yeah, everyone's got it. They don't realise you've got to give the instructions like 3 times. Then you've got to ask the kid who's clearly staring at the ceiling at the back. You've got to like single people out. And then when it starts, you've got to start circulating the room. So like one of the things I sometimes see people do is they'll coach and then they jump in on training. And I can understand that there are times where you might want to do that. There might be something that someone has specifically asked you to in the run up to a competition or whatever. I can see reasons for doing it. But one of the downsides of doing that is that you then don't get to circulate the room and see, have they actually understood? Have I actually explained it well? Because there's times where you walk around the room and you go, yeah, no one in here gets this. Fuck, I need to call everyone back in and actually explain this properly because only I got the instructions then. And I think sometimes that's possibly part of what gets missed, especially in the traditional model, because people will just stand at the side, like set everyone off and then stand at the sidelines. And it's like, at the very least, you need to, while people are just doing a drill, if it's not going to be a game, you kind of need to be there technically changing and monitoring your class.
But it's interesting. It's quite an interesting point, this. And again, this is where we go a little bit deeper into this realm of coaching, I guess, is that one of the things that I've realized is the more, like one of the big focus for our gym is producing like independent learners who understand that when we're training, it's training. We're not fucking around. We're not conversating like don't get me wrong, like that sounds really strict. It's not that strict, but like, but one of the difficult things that it's, again, I don't have a child, right? So I don't understand. I've got a small black and white dog that's about as close to a child, right? But one of the things that always interests me is and again, this actually was from a dog trainer, funnily enough, this quote, but it's like every interaction you have with a person has the ability to impact their way that they go about learning. So like me personally, I'm not a big circulator of a room. And the pure justification of that is if I have to, every time I explain a game, if I have to go over it over and over and over and over again, all I'm teaching them is that when they don't understand or they don't want to listen, I'll just reinforce it. And it's just getting reinforced. So my perspective is I'll explain it. And if you've got any questions, let's go over it, whatever it is. If someone has, I'm not saying I don't, I'm not saying I just ignore them.
Yeah.
But the difference, like for example, in our beginner classes now, our beginners are brilliant. They listen and they go and do it. There's no like, if they've got a question, they'll ask a question, but like, there's no, I don't have to walk around going, do you get this? Do you know what you're doing? Like, it's literally like, this is the game. This is what we're doing. Go and fuck off and do it. Come back. We'll talk about it. We'll feedback on it. What went well, what didn't go well, what you're thinking about, what you're learning. This is the next bit. Let's go and do that. Whereas like with the advanced guys, especially guys who train in other gyms, they're so used to just switching off 10 minutes. And then when it comes around, they go, oh, what they're doing. And then either the training partner has to do it or I have to go, this is what we're doing. So like, I really focus, and sometimes it's a bit being cruel to be kind.
Yeah.
But what my approach is I'm trying to reinforce this, like, we're here to fucking train, switch on. If you doze off for 10 minutes, that's your fault. It's not my responsibility to spoon feed you every piece of information that you need. You've got your task, go and do it.
Yeah.
And that's what we're going to do. And then we'll feedback. I'm not saying they get ignored completely. But it's interesting, these different kind of interactions you can have with the room. And because, again, I'm trying to take myself away from being the all-knowing power of knowledge in the room as well.
Yeah, yeah.
So if I'm just constantly reinforcing every time they don't listen, every time they're daydreaming, it's always me. And it's not them. And they're the ones that got to get better. It's not me. I'm there to help them get better, not to just reinforce, I'll give you everything that you need because you can't be arsed listening.
That's probably, I mean, to be fair, I think I didn't describe it particularly well. I don't think that you should be doing that. But I'm also aware that I probably do that a bit more than perhaps I would. But
you're
that
also
comes
new to it, though.
Yeah, and also my experience is teaching naughty boys who don't fucking listen, so I have to say it over and over again or I lose my job. But that's a good point that I'd not really considered. And I think I probably did that more when I first started. So it's probably worth getting back to that again, where the instructions are much clearer. And
but we not that I'm the expert and definitely haven't fucking cracked everything.
No, but you guys have got far more hours than me.
But the way that we look at I mean, we spoke about this before, but like me and Josh both come from team sport backgrounds, like heavily influenced.
Yep.
Like you come to the gym, we're heavily influenced by like rugby league culture, football culture. Like a lot of the stuff that we do in the gym is stuff that we've stolen externally from jiu-jitsu, whether it's giving out caps, whether it's whatever it is, like whatever the daft shit is that we've tried to do over the years now. But a lot of, if you were a professional athlete, and I'm not saying that we hold everyone to the expectations of a professional athlete, but like if you were playing, I don't know, for a professional rugby team and you forgot your fucking kit, or you don't listen to your coach, you don't listen to your instructions, you're not going to be a professional fucking player for very long. So it's about holding people to an accountable standard of like, don't get me wrong, this sounds miserable as the way I'm explaining it, and it's definitely not miserable. Like
unless you're unreal.
Unless you're
the
unreal.
Sad reality of pro sport, but go on.
But like it's what we're trying to do is just set a standard of how do we approach training in a training environment. Like I said, we take the piss, we have a laugh, we fuck around. Like that's the training room. We're not saying it's like fingers on lips, nobody's talking. Like, but when you come to the gym, when you come to the gym, be prepared to come to the gym. That's the standard you set, and it's like we want you to be ready to train. We want you fucking ready to listen, like engage, like, and I think that's something that jiu-jitsu gyms could take a lot more from. Is that like you're not, just because you're a grown adult doesn't mean you don't turn into a teenager again when you turn up to the gym. You're there to learn and get better. You're the one paying. You're the one paying us. Do you know what I mean? Like that, you're paying the membership. You're the one that wants something out of it. Approach it like that.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Jack, would you say that? What would you say is the biggest issue that you think people... No, actually, scrap that. I had a better question. It was, what's your kind of technical model for jiu-jitsu? So like you talked about trying to give someone a little bit of everything so they can understand what the game that we're actually trying to play here is. Could you like lay that out? Like,
oh, it's just all stolen from Greg Souders. It's just...
it is very good, to be fair. It's very,
so
very
good.
good.
He's thought it all through, hasn't he?
It's very good. You've got to give credit where it's due. The way he's organised it is pretty exceptional.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just try and work through that, really. It's like, yeah.
So for those who are listening who don't know what that is.
Attack the periphery, gain access to centre mass. I don't know how he says it. Get past the hands and feet to get control of the body. Put them down on the floor. Hold them down on the floor. Get past the feet again. And then go and attack whatever's out there. Arms, necks, legs. Basically. So yeah, we're mostly just doing that. We're just trying to get people to the floor, get past the legs, squash them and strangle them. It's kind of how we go about it. So
I like that. I think, if I'm honest, I think that was one of the turning points for me, was when Andrew explained it to me in terms of, I think years ago, Stefan Kesting made this point in his, I don't know if you guys ever downloaded it. It was like a little PDF about here's what the game of jiu-jitsu is. And it kind of talked through, you're going from this position to this position, and it's like a back and forth. And it wasn't perfect, and it was largely designed around gi, and it talked a lot about positions rather than anything else. But it did at least attempt to kind of give you a direction to aim for. And I think that's the thing that's often missing completely from jiu-jitsu coaching, is that people don't understand the why. And I think that's, Andrew, that's what you're describing as like the context of why we're doing this. Like I said it to someone the other day, and I can't remember who it was because my memory is useless, but if you want to teach kids rugby, you don't spend 40 minutes of a session going over how to box kick from inside your own 22 in the last 20 minutes of the game when everyone's knackered. Like that's what pros do because they're already fucking great at the sport. If you want to teach a group of children rugby, you go, if you put the ball down over that line over there, you get a point. If you go put the ball down over that line over there, you get a point. You can only hold it with your hands, pass it backwards, off we go. And they will figure out most of the rest of the game as you go, and you'll adjust and adapt. But because they both have a direction of travel and they get what their aims are, suddenly the game emerges. But it does, because there's only a certain number of ways of solving that problem. And like we've said before, the problem with jiu-jitsu is it's so chaotic and so complex. It's easy to lose sight of the simplicity of the like direction of travel of the sport, because no one talks about the aims. Like even in wrestling, it's easier because the aim is the pin.
Yeah.
In terms of I've got to get through to them, put them on the floor and pin them. That's how I win. In jiu-jitsu, it's I could submit that, or I could submit that, or I could submit that, or I could win on points, or I could. I think sometimes the openness of the rule sets means coaches don't actually engage with what the direction of travel is and what the actual aims are. So I think that's a really nice model to have, to give them like a general direction of travel. Because otherwise you get well, you get a room full of people like the back's good. Why? Because I like it there.
Yeah.
Okay, but why? Like, and as soon as you understand that why it's beneficial, then suddenly it gives you some context for why you would want to pursue that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think all sort of sports as a whole have a basic structure, don't they? And I think, the interesting thing with that, and I think this is where it gets removed from jiu-jitsu, is whether you're looking at it from an absolute big, like, again, use rugby as an example. If you took a group of 6-year-olds playing rugby for the first time, and you took a group of 25-year-old professionals, the structure of that game never changes. It's always the same thing. Now, obviously, again, like 6-year-olds aren't doing full contact, all that sort of stuff, the speed of the game, etc., blah, blah, blah. But the fundamental structure of what they play never changes. And I think the wonderful thing about Greg's definition is, or his structure, whatever you want to call it, is it focuses on those basic principles, again, invariants, that he would use that terminology. Like it's focused on the absolute bare bones of the sport. And like you said, I always think in the way I was, funnily enough, Dave, it's you that made me think about this, but I was trying to think of ways that we could look at this training process. And I think in jiu-jitsu, the problem is we start with detail. And the thing that you made me think about was painting models. Funnily enough. Because I was thinking in my head, when you paint a model, you don't apply the detail first, you put a base coat on. So why do we spend so much time with beginners trying to add detail when they don't even have a base coat? Like, put the base coat on. It will be messy. It will be ugly to watch. It's not going to like go on your wall. You're not going to be like, oh, this is the best thing I've ever painted. But start with that, because it's so much easier to layer in the detail further down the line.
Yeah.
Do you know what? I had a conversation with Chris Meir at the British Open. I seen Chris, and we were chatting just Matt's side. And he made a really, really good point about, like, when you go to tournaments and you see these white belts that are really, really successful. So they're like the big one at white belt jiu-jitsu, Jack, you'll know this more than anything, guard pull to close guard, armbar triangle. Like white belt jiu-jitsu 101 in tournaments. And what that does is it looks really good because they're winning medals, they're being really successful. But everyone who's witnessed that happen, what happens is as the belts progress, they lose the ability to actually deal with when they get to blue belt, and the blue belt's just like, well, all right, well, I'll just not let you get to close guard, or I'll posture and do whatever it is.
Yeah.
That game plan falls apart. So you've given somebody so much detail at the beginning to yes, it looked good on paper, but further down the line when it comes to actually acquiring the skills, they're no better off. In fact, if anything, they're worse off. It's better to be shit at the start and add as you're going along, because then at the end they've got this context we talked about, this description of the game. They can cover those bases. So they know what all that means. They might not be the nicest. They might be struggling in some areas. They might not be brilliant in others. But they've got all them fundamental parts that then you can go, right, well, just try this instead. And they go, oh, shit. Well, now I can pass a guard. Now I can.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, it's so much easier to add it in. Yeah, but at the start, your instinct as a person, like, you're watching the classes and you're going, your brain's going, he's doing that wrong. Give him some information. Whereas, like, learning is going, nah, just give him chance. Do you know what I mean? Like, give him chance. Like, let it be messy. Let him figure it out. Let him play. And then in 3 years' time, because you've kept out of their way as a beginner, in 3 years when you go, just try this, they go, all right, so I can do that.
And they've earned it, so it'll stick.
Yeah.
But So to use your analogy about the painting, it's like making someone really good at, you want to get someone to become a landscape painter and you get them really, really good at clouds.
Yeah,
and then 5 or 6 years later, everyone's like, so you're going to draw, like, is there anything else in this painting, or is it just really good clouds?
Yeah,
like,
really
where's
good
the
clouds.
rest of the... And that's the kind of problem that those people who are given a very developed early game is that you're suddenly saying to them, that thing you're really good at, yeah, you're not really allowed to do that anymore. You have to go and do. Whereas the person who's never been given that thing to be really good at is asked to, and I think it's where constraints drives a lot of it. You're regularly asking people to put themselves in situations where they consistently lose, and they recognize the value of that and why that's important, rather than they get really good at one thing and then they go, oh, I can hang with someone who's more experienced. And then that person just goes, well, I'm just not going to let you in that bit of your game, clearly.
Yeah. Well, this is interesting. I mean, it's I don't know if you've read anything on this. There's a concept that gets used in skill acquisition called metastability. And it's about like adaptable athletes. I don't know if you've read anything on this, Jack. It's been my deep dive so far this year. And it relates to that. So it's like you can become too stable. And you see this a lot in competitions because obviously pressure, nerves, anxiety, the brain does weird shit when you're nervous. And metastability is about being stable relative to a problem, but not too stable that you can't access other pieces of information as it's going along. And I think a big thing in jiu-jitsu, because we've come from this, like, drill this, I'm not very good at that, but I'm good at this, so I'm just going to completely focus on doing this, is we lose that essence of adaptability. And we all know that the best athletes are the most adaptable in that moment. And obviously using more representative live training, different structures, like Jack said, like playing a full game over a session, over a couple of days, over a week, whatever it is, like you're trying to get students or individuals to not get too boxed in and have that ability to go, okay, maybe I'm not, there's going to be certain things I'm good or better at or worse at, but I have the ability, regardless of what gets thrown at me, to solve that problem, as opposed to being like, my only answer to everything is leg locking or whatever it is.
Yeah, I think sorry.
No, go on, Jack.
Yeah, I think having everything be quite vague as well, just having a direction that we're all aiming towards, rather than when I was learning everything, it was like, oh, you're good at mount, so get good at mount. Use whatever else you need to do to get to mount, and then you can win. Sort of didn't really have any understanding of how it connects to anything else, where I'm supposed to move off to, why it's good. So what I ended up having was just like a chain that got me in like a really specific path to one position. But if you can keep everything a lot more open and vague, and then at least like having all pins be something that you can play.
Yeah.
And even if you are good at something specific, even if you've got like a natural inclination to go towards a certain submission, at least then it fits in with wherever you're going to get to, as long as you're like aiming for that big dive, that main obvious direction of passing, pinning, submitting. Right.
Yeah. I think the best example of this on a professional level is probably like Mika Gavau. Like, you watch, he's not boxed into anything, that lad. Like, you watch him grapple and you're just like, you don't know where he's going next. And he just, the ability to put things together. I know obviously he comes from a more traditional background, but like his ability to, I don't like using this word, but like chain grappling together, the shit that he can pull out his arse is fucking mental. Like, I think there was like a clip from like an ADC, the year he won ADCC, and it was like a 30-second clip, and he'd like wrestled, triangled, armbar, took the back, and like you're just like, what is going on here? Like, this is mental. And he's probably obviously everyone gets boxed into sort of a relative game, and that raises a debate of like, are we building performers or are we building good grapplers? Because there is a difference between the two. But he's at a professional level, his ability to, like, even Gordon is obviously hands down the best grappler of all time, especially Nogi. But like, even Gordon's boxed in a little bit. Like, he still has a relative, like, if you were to feed all Gordon's matches into a fucking AI program, it'd probably pull out a similar system regardless of the outcome. It's like, get to half, force the half, chest to chest, pass the guard, then sort of start playing around with whatever finish you want. But like, Mika Gavau is, you just like, he's probably the best example of like an adaptable grappler in that you like so you never know where he's going. He goes left, he goes right, goes up, goes down, goes underneath. Like you're like fucking hell, like just where are you going here?
Yeah, and I think that's interesting that we've talked about before, like the problem with the lack of technical tactical understanding in jiu-jitsu, and I think that feeds into what both of you were talking about there, is that while we're often very interested in the technical solutions and the technical details, that tactically the approaches that we're asking people to take are quite unsound. They don't tactically understand why that direction of travel is better than another direction of travel. Like the simplest being, why is it better to have 3 points of control or 2 points of control with a standing opponent and a plan of what to do next than it is to just spin round and round like you're ballroom dancing? And as silly as that sounds, there are people who don't have a justifiable reason for why one is better than the other. And then when they go, oh, it's control. And you're like, yeah, because from control, then we can do the things that we want to do. So I think the reason that those grapplers like that are so adaptable, because they understand, like he understands the game better naturally, inherently, because he's just done it for so many hours and done it in a room where that mattered to him. But I think what's interesting is jiu-jitsu's always had this assumption that those people just come along.
Yeah.
And to a certain extent they do, because I'm convinced that some of the best grapplers naturally learn like that. They naturally place constraints on themselves during rolling rounds. They get away with the bad technical teaching model because they don't realize within it they're actually developing themselves in a way that they just haven't verbalized. And I think that's why kind of what we're talking about can sound quite nuts and bolts or quite boring. And it's like, because actually the grunt work of figuring out how to make that happen in a person is boring. Like, that's why it has to be done. Like the technical detail makes you sound clever. It sounds interesting. People want it, but it doesn't actually long-term develop someone who's got that ability to adapt and that ability to be good everywhere, rather than just, I'm amazing at one thing and dog shit at everything else.
No, for sure. And yeah, and I think like you said, technical, tactical, but there's also like there's so many lenses in terms of like we use Mika Gallo as the continued example. Is he grapples with no inhibition, so there's his mental approach, again, whether you want to use the word affordance, whether you want to use whatever it is, his philosophical viewpoint of grappling in terms of what it means to go out and to grapple and to compete is wildly different to like mine, for example. Because I'm thinking, fucking hell, I'm shattered here. I don't like that position. I'm not good here. He's good here. Fucking hell, he's strong, isn't he? Like, whereas you get the impression that he's just like, meh. It's just like, whatever happens. I'll just go and do it. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's, like you said, not natural, but like the
inclination.
His inclination to grappling is as natural as it is to walk. There's no consequence to anything. It's just, well, if I lose the position, I'll do this instead. Do you know what I mean? Like his ability to, again, but it comes back to this ability to like to get a bit more boring and a bit more scientific, is his ability to attune to information relative to something and have an understanding and a broad affordance of that issue is vastly different to like everyone else. But the only way that you get to that position is by being able to build on the contextual basics, for want of a better word. Like it's like we always say it, like with classes, like when you put in these games in place, sometimes guys get a bit giddy and get a bit carried away, and it's like say for example, like on Tuesday with the 50-50, when we might put for example, we might put a constraint is like, right, you're in 50-50, but neither player can lock their legs. So you're just building, like they're just getting used to like protecting their legs without relying on that secondary leg. And obviously sometimes they'll get a bit giddy, and then you put them into a position where they can now lock the legs, and everyone starts clamping, and they can't get the fucking legs open. So you have to sort of go, well, I know it's exciting that we're getting the heel, but if we think about it, this big picture, yes, we're getting better at that skill set, but until you can get a fucking leg open, it don't matter whether you wrap the heel or not. If you can't lock his legs, you've got a problem. So it's just it's such an interesting this is one of the things I really, really enjoy about coaching as a whole, is the interaction with people in terms of the problems that they're facing and how can we help solve them in various different ways.
Yeah, and I think that's where you realize whether you're actually into coaching or not, because one of the other big excuses that you get in coaching and teaching is like, oh, I only want the clever people. Like, okay, cool. That I personally think that means you're not very good at your job, because the difficulty lies in helping someone who doesn't get it at all, and the difficulty lies in someone who isn't a natural mover. Like, there are phenomenal coaches out there who can take someone who is that level and take them to like the very tip of the sport, and that is very impressive. But then for every person that is that kind of level of coach, you will also get other people who can just rest on their laurels, and that person will always be pretty good, and it will make them look like a better coach than they are. Whereas I'm pretty sure it was Greg that said, like, show me the worst person in your room. That's how you judge how good your coaching is. Like, what's the bottom level, not what's your star student like a capable of.
I think Danaher said it as well. I think Danaher said it like the average. What's the average grappler in your class like? What's the average level? Not necessarily the best, the worst. But what's the middle guy like, or girl?
Yeah, that's like a big reason for us doing CLA anyway, because we've got like morning class. Mostly, that's like most of our classes is like 6:30 in the morning. You're not getting young athletes come into that. It's all masters age people come from with families and jobs and everything like that. So there is no just like getting away with show them a technique and they'll get it. Like we do in the evening classes, there's like people like Brandon that you could just say, just go and roll, you'll be fine. He comes to class with like a plan in mind, how he's going to submit everyone that day, and he'll just do that. But if you actually need people to get better, like less athletic in the morning, it needs to be quite well thought out. You need to be able to coach to that sort of level of people that aren't just going to be able to figure it out on their own. Or they are, but they want some guidance there.
Yeah, it's going to take a lot longer, isn't
it?
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is like it's not everyone's priorities. Like you said, when you've got a young kid that's got fuck all going on, they're young, single, a lot of them are fucking unemployed, but if they're not, they're probably working a job that they're not as bothered about. And like the difference in that between a 40-year-old who's got 2 kids working 50 hours a week in terms of their brain power is significantly different. Like it's and I always say this in relation whenever I'm having a debate with somebody in terms of coaching strategies, is like I always say, like at the bare bones of it, if both approaches work, one's going to be more at least I know that one's more engaging than the other. So at least somebody who can come in and I can go to them, right, keep both your legs in between their legs, they're going to try and get round you, whatever it is. Like obviously that's a shit example, but it's so much more engaging for them than just being like, right, we're going to do single leg X, then we're going to go to X guard, then we're going to reverse X. But don't remember, you need this tiny little detail that you're never going to fucking remember. And as soon as someone does it live to you, you're just going to forget all about it. So like, if nothing else, like you forget everything, all the debates, one is so much more engaging than the other. And it's, like you said, if you've got somebody at R6 and it's like, right, we need to get them moving, their brains are still, I mean, there's only one R6 in my day, so I'd be fucking fast asleep still. So it's like the bare bones of it. If you think about it that way, then it is much more applicable, like you said.
Yeah. And I think to go on, no, so you, Jack, people have heard enough of me.
Yeah. you've just triggered one of my biggest coaching hates in the world, Jack, and it is the sentence of, "This is what I've been working on." Oh God, it boils my piss. Boils my piss. Who gives a fuck what you've been working on? Why do I want to do that? I don't give a shit. Oh God, sends me under. This is what I've been really enjoying this in sparring. Fuck off. I don't give a toss.
I've got a room full of really short arm people, but I've really enjoyed doing anacondas, and I've got really long arms.
I love arse jokes. Yeah, fuck off. Fucking knob. It sends me under, that shit.
But I think that shows at its crux our issue with the way that jiu-jitsu is coached at the moment. Is there is no coaching qualification. You just get your black belt and people expect you to be able to teach. And why would you, when teaching is a skill in and of itself? If you coached like Jack coaching swimming, there's qualifications that you have to do to be able to do that. You can't just go, I'm a really good swimmer. Like, you will be required to have at least, I'm sure it's not quite as straightforward as that. But what I mean is there'll be minimums that you have to meet. And the issue is that the only real minimum with jiu-jitsu is a room full of people that want you to coach them. And if it's kids, a DBS check and some form of insurance. And it just means,
although to be fair, in the current state of jiu-jitsu, a DBS check don't mean very much.
Well, yeah. I don't think a DBS check ever meant anything when you consider yourself a man of God, but we'll save that for a separate podcast.
But it's even more now. It's even less valuable.
I think to a certain extent what we're asking for here is a driving up of standards, or at least just an interest in like, it's fun, it excites people. Yes, as a coach, it's scary because you might get it wrong, you might fuck it up. I think sometimes people are intimidated by you saying my solution's not good enough. Well, the problem that you have there is if all you ever coach in is the things that you know or what you've been working on, yes, there might be things that are valuable there that you've picked up. But at the same time, is that what that room needs? Is that what will actually support the people in front of you who are ultimately, if this is your job, paying your bills? Because you're not going to have people sticking around very long if you're not solving and allowing them an environment in which they can learn to solve the problems that they actually want to solve, rather than you just going, here's what I like to do.
Yeah, no, definitely. And like, I'm, do you know what? I'm actually the opposite of you, Dave, because I couldn't give a shit. Like, it really doesn't, I know, and again, I don't want to sound big-headed, but like, I know what I put in to do this to the best of my ability.
Yeah.
And if other people don't want to do that, that's their fucking problem. Do you know what I mean? Like, it genuinely is like, I always think the certification thing, like, obviously, like, I know you're saying it's just like an example of like obviously Jack like laughed when you said it, but it's like, it doesn't, I genuinely couldn't give a shit, because all it does is reinforce in my head, I'm going to do a better job than they're doing. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm going to put more effort in, more work, and try and hold myself to a better standard. Sorry, there's a dog here. So, that's it. Good boy. Sorry, lads, got interrupted by a dog. But yeah, so it's like, I think it's one of those things. It's like, if people don't give a shit enough to do something about it, then fuck them. Do you know what I mean? Like, I always think it's mad. Like, I'll often get questioned, like, if I'm coaching a session, it's like, are you not training? It's like, well, no. I'm fucking doing the session. Do you know what I mean? How can I coach a session if I'm training? And it's, if that's, we've got bigger issues in this sport. If that's a fundamental level of, like, if you're coaching a session and you don't see that training in the session isn't the best thing to go about it, then we've got bigger fucking issues. Do you know what I mean? Like, it goes beyond fucking drilling, constraints, whatever. It's just the bare essentials of being a fucking coach.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think to be honest,
no. Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, that's fair. I guess my frustration comes from, I feel for those people in that room who didn't know any better, who that's the local gym, that's all they've got on offer. And it irritates me that there are people out there who consider themselves a teacher of jiu-jitsu, and it's like, you're just in front of people and saying stuff you like. That's not what this is. And I understand that should just drive you to want to be better, but it's probably the pettiness in me that just says, well, I just want them to not be have a nice thing. I want someone better to be able to do it, or them to, you know. And on the other hand, I also feel sorry for that coach, because I think you're missing out on what the amazing feeling of eating shit trying to design something that works for ages and then it finally working. Like that, the sort of long-term project that is trying to develop people is very cool, and a lot of people miss out on that because they're not actually thinking about how to develop those people. They're just thinking about how to teach them some stuff.
Yeah, but I guess to relate that, like, in our game, it's like strength conditioning. How many exceptional coaches do we know that? I mean, Christ, not to put ourselves into that bracket, but like me and you are both an example of that. It's like,
I was very happy that you put me in it.
How many good coaches do we know in strength conditioning? But yet the ones that get all the attention are just the narcissists who are good on social media, and people perceive that to be good coaching. Like, it's some of the best coaches that in the world that most people never have heard of, that are fucking skint and can't, or working multiple jobs or whatever, like, just to simply justify their love for a game. But just because they're not very good in front of a camera, it's across the board. It's not just jiu-jitsu. It's unfortunately, the value of somebody as a person is like, or what they can offer doesn't always equate to outcomes. And if people, and if people are, I don't want to use this word, but if people are thick enough to fall for a fucking talking head video on Instagram, thinking that that's perceived knowledge, like, because they've had a good business mentor, then unfortunately that's the game that we play in.
No, I couldn't agree with you more there.
It's true though, isn't it? Like
no, I don't disagree at all. I just thought of something else that I want to ask you, Jack. Setting up in a city where there's already, because of the person who shall remain unnamed, there are a lot of different gyms spread all over the place. What was it like trying to set up your own space in a city that already has several gyms to begin with? Yeah. Just come back. Because I always find that
politics.
But I find that interesting, because it's like, at some point there's going to be a whole host more people who want to be coaching in the city centre, and where are those opportunities? Again, because there isn't a massive gym. If there was, there would be more opportunities for people to coach the kinds of classes that they want to, and perhaps a bit more flexibility of, like, you can coach how you want to, because we've got this number of slots we need to fill, and I can't possibly do all those hours by myself. But I think because it's become so, like, higgledy-piggledy all over the city, it interests me as someone who owns their own gym and then wants to set up someone who knows a lot of people in the area and has trained with people all over. I think it's really interesting that you were so thoughtful of that, and that's actually quite important, because I think it means that if and when you do move back to the city centre, I don't think people will necessarily see that as in the same light as if you'd done that when you first started. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's really important as well, that you're approaching that as, I know some of it is so that you can train, but also that approach as a coach that you kind of put your, some people would find that very hard to do because they wouldn't be able to put their ego aside in terms of like managing relationships and making sure that they're positive and making sure that there's a good vibe between the different gyms so that that's still possible for your students is something that some places, and I understand there's points where people can't do that anymore, but it's something that I think shows that you're more interested in the coaching than anything else because you're putting the experience of your athletes and what kind of, and the people who train with you ahead of necessarily what financially you might want to do for your own stability, which can be a really difficult line to tread, I think, especially if you're making it like a large part of your like part of your income, because I know that you coach as well, swimming. Yeah. Yeah. Have you found that you've like maintaining those kinds of relationships, have you found that you've had any more interest from other coaches and other people within those gyms about the approach that you guys take? Or is it still quite, this is how we do things? Yeah. 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 No, that's fair enough. And you answered that very, I realized. Go on. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah. So it's interesting because like on the one hand, I was very lucky. So we won't go too much into the history of grappling in Sheffield, but the coach that I had, when I asked if I could cross train, because I had friends at another gym and they're like, check before you go anywhere. I've got my first coach was a guy called Steve Worsley, and he was like, yeah, couldn't give a shit petal. Like he was like, why would I stop you from training somewhere else? It didn't make sense to him. I didn't realize how much at the time that was quite an outlier mentality in Sheffield. So for me, it's interesting going and training everywhere and like talking about it with people, because I think I've always, as a result of that, been a bit thick and a bit open and put my foot in my mouth without realizing it. So I've had a few people kind of like Brett, definitely. We've talked for years and he's been interested in all of that. And we talk about planning sessions and what we're trying to do and different ways that you can coach things. But I find it sort of similar to you. I kind of get occasionally like, oh, I hear you coaching over there. And then there's not really any follow up in terms of like, oh, how do you do it? Or what are you, but I wonder if some of that as well is where we're based. A lot of the people who are head coaches have been, at least in my lifetime of in doing jiu-jitsu, have been head coaches since, or close to head coaches since I was a white belt. So there's probably also that aspect of like, oh, that guy thinks he knows what he's doing now. And yeah, I can understand why some of those people might not want to ask, but I found the same sort of thing that some of the upper belts, some of the other people who are in those rooms, especially at some of the open mats, are much more open to it. And like, how do you go about that? What, whether it's asking like, how are you solving that problem specifically, or you'll get people who actually say, well, how would you coach that situation to someone without using drilling? Like, that's my favorite one, is that without using drilling. I'm thinking, how the fuck would you coach them that using drilling? Like guys who think you can do stand up from like traditional martial arts drilling. I'm like, have you ever seen someone who breaks like an arm drag into 12 parts ever actually do one like live? No, of course you haven't. And it's, yeah, it's interesting getting a few people who are interested, but there's a bit of hesitancy there as well. And I lucky for me, I've only got one session a week, so I just say I'd come down on Wednesday evening if you want, because Brett's really open to people coming along. But yeah.
Oh, he's just gone.
He has. Right, don't worry. I'll message him. Got bored of my long answer. Don't blame him.
Well,
how have you find that, Andrew? Because I know you've got a much smaller area in terms of, like, Sheffield's quite big by comparison in the number of gyms.
No one asks me nothing.
To be fair, people probably don't ask me. I think I'd probably just start talking about it.
I mean, obviously, so from a training perspective, I was quite lucky that where I started training, Neil, who ran the gym, was incredibly open with us traveling and training at different gyms.
Yeah.
He was always, it was just the thing that he did. He always did it a lot. So it was just always a very normal thing that he never really batted an eyelid about.
That's cool.
I think, it's been normal. Obviously, I don't get much chance to do it as much nowadays. A, running a gym, and B, body's on its arse. But it's it was really normal. It was like, it was the thing you did. Do you know what I mean? Like, I never knew any different, really. I was very fortunate from that perspective, that he was always very much a case of like, if you want to get good training partners or whatever, go and train at this place, different experiences. I did a decent stint as like a blue belt, maybe into purple belt, training at another gym. Obviously, like, Alicat was my home base, but yeah, so no, it's never been a problem. It's just been a normal thing, really. Nobody really asks me anything about what we're doing. And to be honest, I couldn't give a shit either. Like, he's gone again. I'm not asked. I just do what I think is well, not what I do. I do what we think is best for the people in the room.
Yeah.
And if
So I was going to say,
people like that.
Well, the difference that you have is you've got someone who co-owns with you to have those discussions with. I think.
Yeah.
I very much appreciate that. I can ask you. I can ask Chris Mia. We've got that group with Josh in now that he's finally accepted that CLA is the thing, and as with the way I knew he was going to, that he'd be like, "Oh, I get it now."
Yeah, I bet Josh loves people asking him.
He drinks it in.
Yeah, he fucking loves it.
That would be me, just my head just expanding. No, it's an odd one because I think actually, if you're good at this sort of thing, you sort of feel a bit uncomfortable with it. And I don't know whether that's the case for everyone, but especially in the light of everything that's happened with people like at Atos and all of these awful things that have happened, often that comes from this kind of looking up to the coach as the great big person who knows all the stuff. And like, I'm not trying to say that they're similar because, of course, that's a person with a like competition record that you and I could only dream of. Like, but you have to actively combat that to not create those environments.
Yeah, exceptional grappler, not very nice person.
Yeah, and Keenan Cornelius gave us the blueprint for all of this in like 2018, I think, when he started running his business on how to set up a business, and people just didn't listen because there's this assumption that you don't have to worry about it or that culture doesn't really matter or it's a thing that happens. And actually, it's something that coaches spend quite a lot of time thinking about and considering and sort of trying to make sure. Sorry, I'm just messaging Jack again.
And
trying to make sure that sort of thing doesn't happen.
Yeah, I mean, that's like discussions on like safeguarding and all that sort of shit in it. And I think,
but also the fact that the problem itself comes from the same problem that we're describing in terms of the way that people teach. So,
all right, yeah.
Having an approach that means you are not the grandma, like he's our coach, means to those people. He designs stuff for us. He helps us out. He's really sound. Like rather than like, oh, he's our coach, and we look up to him and worship the ground that he walks on. And like we've talked before about people defeating themselves in rounds against their coach before they even start because they hold them in this like great esteem, and it's like, who gives a shit? It doesn't. But yeah, and maybe that's why none of us is famous.
But again, it's maybe that's why we're not narcissistic enough. But it is like it is tough, and the problem is when you are the owner of the gym, you will always have some degree of, no matter how sound you try and be, and because it's your gym, it's your business. You know what I mean? Like you're the first person that somebody meets. Like you're the guy who gives the fucking belts out, whatever it is. Like and. Like
you're a gatekeeper on some level.
Yeah, you're a gatekeeper to some extent, but like we try really, really hard to not to again, everyone's different in terms of how they want to navigate it. The way that we try and navigate it is again very much like drawing themes from other sports, and it's not about us, it's about the room. So there's like I don't know if anyone gives a shit, but there's have you ever read Legacy by James Kerr, the All Blacks book?
That I might have read that one. I've read like 2 of those styles of book and hated it, so I've never read anything like that again. But
so basically the All Blacks have for anyone's listening, the All Blacks have like a concept which is like you can't just take the jersey, you've got to like leave something behind in the jersey. Essentially just trying to get people to not just take the fame and glory that comes with being an All Black and just leaving it in a worse shape than it is.
Which rang a bit truer pre-COVID than it has since COVID.
Yeah. So we took an element of that and stole it, and sort of we try and approach it as like you like always give back to the room. Like the room is the most important thing. The people in the room, you can't just turn up and expect people to train with you and to sweat with you and to do rounds with you and not provide the same in return. Do you know what I mean? Like give effort to the room. So we try and very much steer it from the perspective of like the room, and the room is the thing. It's not us, it's the room. Do you know what I mean? Like the people that are around you, your training partners, that's the important thing. Obviously we're the guiding force behind that. We're the ones that do the disciplinary. If someone's being a prick, we're the ones that fucking pay the bills. So they're an element.
No, but in that way, you've all got a common goal.
Yeah. And so we try and keep it that much. We try and very much look at it from the perspective of, like I said, the room. The team is first. Treat it like a team. Don't just say, "Oh, it's a team," and then, like you said, random shit ends up happening. Like it don't matter whether you're a fucking black belt and trying to be a world champion, or you're a white belt and it's the first time on the match. You're all as equal as one another. Do you know what I mean? And
yeah. And the thing is, those things are very
cliche thing to say.
Yeah, but they're also very easy to say. And like, I think what's interesting is hearing how you try and make that happen, because people talk about standards and culture, and unless you actually enforce those standards, you've just got preferences. Like it means nothing until you do the difficult conversations, you push back and actually do what you need to do. Right. I think we're going to have to call it there, because Jack had just messaged me and this thing does not want to let him back in. But we've also hit a pretty good point. If people have questions, if they want to, like, I don't know, send us topics, that would be nice. Guests that you would recommend that you think we should have on. We are interested. We'll probably veto most of them, but feel free to leave them either below if you're on YouTube, or wherever you can leave them on Spotify. I don't know. I'm a Luddite. I don't even have Spotify. So, thank you for that, mate. I really enjoyed it. It was good to get Jack on, especially as he's someone that both of us have spoken to about coaching quite a lot. Like, I've trained a good amount with Jack as well. He competes regularly. And I didn't get to say it at the time. It's really nice to see him. The sort of performances that we knew were there seem to be coming a bit more consistently for him in the last few months. It's really nice to see.
One of the things that I wanted to say is, Jack, my first experience with Jack was when he was a brown belt. Obviously, I'd never met him before, just watching him compete. But one of the big things I've always got a lot of time for in this sport is guys who are, I don't like saying this, like laying it on the line, but Jack is a fantastic example of somebody whose entire mission within the sport is to be the best version of himself. And you see that in terms of the matches he takes, he doesn't hide from anyone. He does any rule set, and he's very willing to go out and challenge himself. And I think I've got a massive amount of respect for the guys that are willing to put the sword on the shield, and no matter the win, no matter the loss. Like, it's so easy to be, in the modern day, a very sort of social media grappler in terms of taking the matches that you know you can win, and you get in the highlight reels or whatever. And I think Jack is very much of the ilk that's not the case. He always, every time I see him compete, it doesn't matter who it's against. He's got a very wonderful, sort of quite flowy style. It's quite a nice, quite an attractive style of jiu-jitsu as well. So I like I said, I obviously would have paid him the compliment, but hopefully he might listen back to this. He'll hear it in the end. But
we'll clip it up. We'll clip up a compliment reel just for Jack.
Yeah. So anyone who isn't familiar with Jack, obviously, like I said, he's the epitome of that. It's not always about being the best or winning everything. It's about challenging yourself and putting it on the line to improve yourself as a grappler. And I think Jack epitomises that.
Yeah, 100%. And it coming from Sheffield, it's lovely to see someone. He was probably the first wave of people to be doing it, especially in no-gi and especially in kind of sub-onlys and that sort of stuff. Like, he is the person that the other people in this area look up to as like, oh, how'd you get on that? It's like, well, we can go and ask Jack now. Whereas previously, people would ask, and I was like, I don't know, I'll ask Andrew. Whereas there's definitely a path for people to follow now in that sense, which is really cool to see.
Yeah, man, definitely.
And it's lovely to see the gym developing as well. And Brandon as well, who trains with Jack, is just the most disgusting grappler I've ever rolled.
Yeah, he's frightening. He's fucking frightening. He's massive. He's threatening.
Another example of someone who's just very adaptive. Like, you can put him anywhere and he'll figure it out. And you can watch him. I'm sure you've seen this before with people. It's like in Terminator, where they're like, he's learning. You can see the Terminator figuring out that it's the same thing with him. I've watched people put him in situations where, when he first arrived in Sheffield, he'd not been grappling for that long. He'd grappled very intensively and at a very good level. and people were like, "Oh, if I take him here, I'm okay."
Yeah.
And then they tried it like a month later, and I'm like, "Oh no, I'm in trouble." But yeah, it's a pleasure to see, and it's really good to see Counter Grappling, which is where you can follow him on Instagram, going from sort of strength to strength, especially with the guys that they've got competing out of there at the moment. But yeah, thank you as always, mate. It's good to...
My pleasure, mate. Good to see you.
Good to talk it all through.
Yeah, man.
Despite internet connections.
Enjoy the rest of your day. Yeah, despite
I will.
internet connections. Right, enjoy the rest of your day, man.
See ya.
Take it easy.
Bye.
See you in a bit.